This is the Bat Flip Podcast. Now here's your host, Damian, David, and Matt. Welcome in, everyone, to another episode of the Bat Flip Podcast. Damian, David, and Matt. And as our friend Adam is saying, yes, we are late from our scheduled time of 5 o'clock that I put on the YouTube channel. But you know what? Deal with it, Adam. All right? We had to hear enough of you.
5 o'clock.
Yeah,
5 o'clock was 2 hours ago.
It's perfect timing, man. I'm telling you, West Coast time's elite. So obviously today, as you could tell by the show, we're going to be doing free agency predictions. We are going to go over all of the top guys and many more. We're going to basically just kind of quick preference of like, we're not going to dive too deep into each guy and why we think this guy's going to said fit and everything. Quick, what's the word I'm even looking for? Quick analysis, there we go, of it. And then we will dive more into the breaking news episodes of when these players actually sign it. Mm-hmm. But this is going to be a long episode, so we're going to get into the free agency predictions. But before we do, because I always wait till the end, people always tell me I should do it earlier. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Drop it right now. This is going to be a big off season for the Bat Flip Podcast and Bat Flip Entertainment as a whole. We're going to be trying to do a lot more breaking news episodes. So you're going to want to tune in to catch those. And as K Quads King says, we're going for Dodgers 3-peat this year. I agree. Thank you.
No.
All right.
That bodes poorly for my first free agent prediction, actually.
Yeah. Well, that's a perfect segue in. K Quad Kings, thank you very much. So let's go ahead and just start that, because like I said, it's going to be into a lot. So first free agent, and these are all in order by MLB.com, top 30 to 40 free agents. So if you have a problem in which order we're doing this, go yell at MLB.com, because they are the ones that ranked this the way they did. Okay. They all have Kyle Tucker starting at number 1, though. So I have Kyle Tucker going to the San Francisco Giants. 10 years, $425 million. I think the Giants need a big-time bat. You know, they traded for some other ones, but they have a big need for an outfielder. Buster Posey seems he wants to be aggressive. Kyle Tucker, I think, is a perfect fit for the San Francisco Giants. So, David, what do you got?
Yeah, the way I see this free agency going is a little bit different than the typical big names. I do think Kyle Tucker is going to get some of those 10-year offers like Damian mentioned, but what I think ends up happening is those offers come in lower than that $400 million kind of number that we've been hearing a lot. And so I think Tucker ends up taking a deal that's a little similar to that Alex Bregman deal from last year, where he gets a really high AAV, like up in the 40s plus, per year, and is able to opt out after a year or two, because I think the year this year hurt him. I think his final couple of teams are Dodgers, Cubs, and then I put the Tampa Bay Rays on here. I really wanted to snipe it. I think that he's not low-key got a chance to go to the Rays. The Rays might spend some money this offseason, new ownership group, and Tucker's from Tampa, Florida, but I couldn't do it. Dodgers take Kyle Tucker. He fits really nicely into the Conforto spot. It's just it's an obvious fit. I've got him for 7 years, like $300 million, but I'm thinking there's like a year 2 opt out in there where he can just jump back to free agency and try to get another, 7 or 8 year deal for a bigger number overall.
Yeah, I got Kyle Tucker going to the Dodgers. I think that just the Dodgers need a left fielder. I mean, that's what they were missing most of this year. And Kyle Tucker go in that corner outfield spot and fit right in, play good enough defense in a corner, and be a good lefty power bat. So I'm sure the Dodgers are going to spend money, as they always do. So yeah, that's where I got him going. I got 10 for 400. I think last year Juan Soto kind of reset the market a little bit, because the Shohei signing with the Dodgers a couple years ago, that was such a unique player that it was hard for that value to set the market. But then the Mets signed Juan Soto to what they signed him to. So I do think that reset the market, where what used to be $300 million was about 6 or 8 years ago with like Bryce Harper, Manny Machado types. That's $400 million now with Kyle Tucker. So, and maybe even that might be even not at quite what, like Bryce Harper at 27 years old was on the open market today, he might get $500 million.
Yeah.
So I think that Kyle Tucker getting 400 is kind of in that realm of kind of in that range. And I got him for 10 years though. So, that extra years, I think I actually have a lower AAV than what David had for him. But the Dodgers like these long-term deals and they like to defer money. So I think that might be in the works too here.
Yeah, it is worth mentioning that this is the potential last free agency before the lockout.
Mm-hmm.
So, and next year's free agents class isn't even really that heavy either. So,
and a bunch of bums.
Yeah, basically, if you're needing an impact bat, this is kind of the year for you. So let's transition to talking about Alex Bregman now. I said last year that I thought Alex Bregman is going to the Detroit Tigers for what I have it. Or no, I changed it to Yankees at the last second. That's right.
That's
6 years, 175. I was saying all along it was going to be the Tigers. I changed it last second. I still think it's going to be the Detroit Tigers. It's the perfect fit. They need a third base bat. They need a big time bat in general. AJ Hinch is there. Everything's there. I have him going 6 years, 180 million. You're getting the lower AAV than what you opted out of for the Boston deal, but you're getting the long-term security there. And I think it's a great fit. They need a big time right-hand bat.
Yep.
And everything is in place there. I think they had a little bit of FOMO missing out on Alex Bregman last year. That this is the year you have it. 1 year later, you have the opportunity to right your wrong from the year before. You don't get that opportunity very often. I think they do it this year.
I completely balked at taking the Tigers in anything because of these Tariq Skubal rumors.
Yeah.
If they're concerned about Skubal, then I'm just not projecting them to. I'm hope they just stand pat is what I'm hoping for. So it's very hard for me to even put the Tigers on here if they're concerned with paying Skubal his last year in arbitration. We're getting a Bregman contract is significant. I'm sticking Bregman to the Mets. I think they're going to make at least one big bat signing in this group. I'm going to assume that it won't be Alonso. I feel like Alonso and the Mets are kind of done. I think everybody here agrees. So when we get to that, so I feel like the Mets are going to have some space to spend on the roster. Move Vientos over to first, put Bregman at third. It makes a lot of sense. I've got him going for $200 million. I think that's how you overbid both the Red Sox and the Tigers on this one. 6 years, $200 million. You get over that $30 million AAV. Get it a little closer to that Boston AAV that he got last year. And then this is a Boris deal. This deal is this contract in particular, this free agency is going to go deep into the offseason. It might even be like a February or a March signing.
Yeah, I'm with David on the Tigers. I mean, with Damien on the Tigers here. I've that perfect fit with AJ Hinch. I don't really buy the Tariq Skubal rumors totally. That ends up happening a lot, but sometimes that's agents throwing stuff out there to try to pressure teams into paying the player. And I don't know that the Tigers are a team that's just going to be allergic to spending money. They had some money come off the books after last year too. I just don't think they're just allergic to spending money. I mean, they're not going to spend like the Dodgers, but they're probably also not going to spend like the Pirates. So I've got them bringing in Bregman, 5 years, 150. That's a $30 million AAV. It might be a little under what, he would probably hope for, but I just don't know. The profile of Bregman is not one that you feel like is just going to be an excellent 5-year contract with him being 32 years old. So there's a little bit of risk involved with him. He did deal with a little bit of injury this year too at times. And I don't know. I feel like it would be a great fit for him to go back to the Red Sox because of the ballpark. And I guess it's a possibility. I don't totally disagree with the Mets either, but I've got the Tigers here. I think that fit with AJ Hinch and what the Tigers need is a really big deal.
Yeah. Now let's transition to talking about Kyle Schwarber. I think this one's pretty cut and dry. I think we all think the same way. There's no way that Dave Dombrowski can let Kyle Schwarber walk out of the city of Philadelphia. I think he's getting a 5-year, $165 million deal. You pay the man who just hit 50-plus homers for you. He's at that point where now you see the Kyle Schwarber finally rounding into who we all thought he could be at one time. You can't let that guy walk, especially if you're the Phillies. You talk about how much you're going to spend all the time, how much you're expected to be a contender. The last thing you could do is let a guy like Kyle Schwarber walk out the door at this moment. So 33 million AAV, people might say that. I feel like it's right in line with where it is. He might push for a little bit higher, but I think you're also getting the stability of a 5-year deal, so it makes a ton of sense there.
I'll believe Kyle Schwarber is actually like a true free agent when I see it. I think he's heading back to Philly as well. I would love for him to come back to the Cubs. But I think he's going straight back to Philly, 5/150, $30 million a year. It's an easy deal. I don't know if a lot of owners and GMs are going to be interested in paying a DH $30 million a year, but Kyle Schwarber's like a difference maker in that regard, and it makes a lot of sense for Philly to just bring him back.
Yeah, I'm with y'all on the Phillies bringing him back. I think he's going to get paid a little bit less than y'all think. I got 5/125. I think that, like David said, the DH thing. Schwarber is 1,000% a DH only. And his profile is one that carries some risk too. High swing and miss. He hits for a ton of power, but high swing and miss. Low batting average on balls in play as well. It's home run or bust for him, and he's 32 years old. So I think that's going to scare some GMs risk wise. I'm not saying that it wouldn't be a fantastic signing, because I think it would be, but Kyle Schwarber's a great player, great postseason performer too, for teams that might be having trouble in the postseason every year. But like the whole paying a DH more than $25 million for a long-term deal, at 32 years old is just it's a little bit too rich for me. So I've got him 5/125. I think his last contract might've been 4/90 or something, 5/100, something like that. But remember his last contract, he was a lot younger. I mean, he didn't even go fully through arbitration, and kind of rebounded with the Red Sox and Nationals for a year before signing with the Phillies on a big deal. So I think he's going to get paid pretty well, but maybe not quite as well as as y'all are thinking. So
it was 4 for $79 is what he signed for.
Okay, yeah.
Before.
I mean, it's a pretty big payday over that. So
yeah. So let's transition over now to talking about Bo Bichette. Bo Bichette obviously has been very much in the rumors lately with the injury, history of him dealing with this year in the playoffs, coming back in the World Series, getting so close to finally winning in Toronto. They haven't been willing to pay both of them, before, but I think you have to do it now, right? Bo has talked openly about wanting to stay there. You got so close now. Seems to have a good relationship with John Schneider and Vlad, who was obviously, they came up through the minor leagues, all three of them really together. I don't see a way you can let Bo Bichette walk. The only way I think is if you're not willing to make him a shortstop. Maybe he wants to be shortstop still, and you have Andres Jimenez, but he also offered to play second base in the World Series, so I don't think that'll even be an issue. So I have him going back to the Blue Jays, 7 years, $185 million. I feel like he might try and push for $200 million, but I think at the end of the day, I think if you're getting that deal to stay in Toronto, you might be willing to take a little bit less to make that officially happen. So I have Bo Bichette staying in Toronto.
Yeah, this is an easy Bo Bichette back to Toronto for me as well. I went ahead and gave him the extra year and then kicked the AAV up to 30 million. So it's 8 for 240 for me. And then I thought I might've been a little high. And then I went and looked, and I think it's Baseball America had 8 for 240 as the projection for Bo Bichette. I'm kind of hedging my bets that he's going to get paid a little bit more, just because of that kind of pure star name, the factor, before. I will say, if he does leave Toronto, which I am not expecting, Atlanta, great fit, needs a shortstop. And then, if he's willing to move off of shortstop, right? I think if the Dodgers don't get Kyle Tucker, it's another really good fit, where he can play in that infield wherever they need him to. Dodgers kind of voiding a second baseman right now. Feels like a reasonable fit to me, but so Bo Bichette's an interesting free agency case, but until, again, it's the same with Schwarber. Until we get some real info that somebody that's not his home team is courting him, I'm not going to believe he's leaving.
Yeah, I've got him signing back with the Blue Jays as well. I got 7 for 190. I will say this about Bo Bichette: I would not pay him that money if I was the Blue Jays or any team. This is a guy that's had some injury history over the last few years and cannot play shortstop at an adequate level at this point, and never really has been a good shortstop, but can't play at an adequate level. And his offensive profile is very free swinging, contact oriented. And I don't know that he's going to be able to keep that up long term. So there's a lot of reasons. He's been a great hitter for a shortstop for his whole career, but you're looking at paying a guy $200 million, and I just don't think this is the guy you would want to risk that 7-year deal on. Not trying to be, anti Bo Bichette here. And I think that if you're Toronto, you bring him back because of the familiarity and just, he's been a postseason hero for them now. Like you bring him back, but it's not like if the Braves were going to sign him, I would not be excited about them signing that deal. So, but I think he goes back to Toronto and 7 years, 190. I think that's kind of what the predictions on the market are for him, but I wouldn't pay him that much if it were me.
All right, so let's transition over to talking about Cody Bellinger now. And if anyone knows me, Cody Bellinger is going back to Los Angeles. It is a foregone conclusion. He never left after 2019. It's still 2019, if you ask me, for Cody Bellinger. But in reality, I have him going back to the New York Yankees, right? I think he has a great fit there. Is where his dad played, won World Series there. I think he had a really good meshing with that clubhouse. He can play all three outfield positions for you. He can play first base for you. I think it's just too much of a perfect fit. I have it 6 years, $125 million. It's a little bit over $20 million AAV. I think he might try to push that to get a little bit higher after having a few, couple good seasons here. But I think you're also getting the long-term stability that you probably haven't had before. You don't have any qualifying offer attached. You don't have any of that this year. Mm-hmm. This is when you kind of go for your long-term money. I think that's where Cody Bellinger just stays there. So we're in the staying part of the episode with Bo Bichette and Cody Bellinger.
Yeah, I promise we don't choose everybody to stay in the same spot. I promise, right? But yeah, Cody Bellinger back to the Yankees is a no-brainer. Yankees just have to effectively. The Yankees are bidding against themselves to get this done. I think Jamie's in the ballpark. I was there too. I did 6 for 130. I felt like the Yankees have to pay for his home park performance. He was incredible in Yankee Stadium and about the same as he was as a Cub the last year before, just slightly above average everywhere else. So ballpark is made perfect for him, and hopefully he can continue to mash there for the rest of his career.
Yeah, I'm on board with y'all for the same reasoning. I think he's going back to the Yankees, and I do think the Yankees pay him a little bit more. If you look at his last 3 years, Cody Bellinger's been pretty consistently averaging 3.5 to 4 wins a year. So, he's been a really good player, and he's, like you said, he's a perfect fit for Yankee Stadium. He was great this year. I think they'll have to pay a little bit more than, I think that I got him for 5 years, 130. So one less year, but so he gets a higher AAV. That would get him to age 35. He might probably get another contract at that point. So it'd leave him open for that. So I'm definitely think he goes back to the Yankees though.
Next up, we got Pete Alonso. And this is one that I went back and forth on because I really did feel like there might be an opportunity to stay with the Mets. But the more and more I thought about it, the more and more I just figured it was time that they probably separate themselves. So I had the Red Sox losing Alex Bregman. I have them picking up Pete Alonso. I have them going 5 years, $150 million. I think Pete Alonso would crush the ball in Fenway. The Green Monster might be very scared of Pete Alonso there. It would just go nuclear. I think they've been looking for that other big-time kind of right-handed bat. There's some other guys you can make the argument maybe because they have Casas there that maybe like a Eugenio Suarez or something makes a little bit more sense to play that third base role. But I think Pete is he's so good, and I think it's such a good fit there. So I have Pete Alonso going to the Red Sox.
Yeah, I like it. I have the Red Sox signing a different first baseman. So I think we're aligned in that I believe the Red Sox will be spending money on a bat in this free agent class. We talked about some of the other teams doing that, but for me, one of the teams that's going to be hunting a first baseman and that they declared already, Jerry DiPoto said, we're looking for a new first baseman already. The Mariners need a splash. They need a buddy for Cal Raleigh and Julio Rodriguez. I'm picking Pete Alonso to go over to Seattle. Unfortunately, because I would love to pick for Pete Alonso to go to the Cubs. Felt like that's also an idea, but I've got him at 4 years, 130. Get him over 30 million AAV. See if he can't mash his way through the Seattle ballpark. Cal Raleigh's proving that it's not the park, right? You just have to be able to hit bombs, right? And you can just get it through that heavy Seattle air.
Yeah.
So it's fine, right? I think Pete fits nicely in that lineup as well. We saw them go out and inquire Eugenio Suarez and go to the NLCS or ALCS Game 7. it's a good. I like it as a fit. I think they do need a first baseman there, but yeah, I think we might have our first baseman flipped for these two teams.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got Pete Alonso going to the Red Sox. I'm with you, Damian. I think the Red Sox are going to spend on a power bat, right-handed power bat, and I don't think that they fully trust Casas and his injuries. But if Casas comes back, their DH is open too. They've got Yoshida, but he's been pretty bad the last couple of years. So, and Pete Alonso is definitely the type that would transition well to DH. He's been a pretty rough defensive first baseman for the last couple of years, and really his whole career, he hasn't been the best defender at first. So, if Casas got healthy, then you could always just have both of them in there, shift Alonso over to DH, have Casas in the lineup. But, Casas is nowhere near a sure thing at this point, and Pete Alonso's there for the taking, and he's a great fit for that ballpark. So I've got Pete Alonso going there, and I've got him going for 5 years, 130. So a little bit less than what Damian was thinking here. I just don't know if his profile is likely needing to move to DH at some point. And, he had a great year this past year, but, year before last, he was a little up and down. He hadn't been super consistent the last few years. I think his market maybe dips just a little bit because of that, but I think he's going to have a good, sign a pretty big contract, and it's going to be a good fit for the Red Sox.
So talking about another first baseman who we expect to sign another big time contract, that's Japanese infielder Munetaka Murakami. He is a widely what's the word? There's a wide range of what people think his outcome could be. You talk to some people who are like, he would be lucky to be your replacement level player. You talk to other people who think he could turn into the next Shohei Ohtani. Like, there's very wide range here. I'm probably a little bit higher on Murakami than the general consensus. I do think he can reach that upper echelon, maybe like a Kyle Schwarber tier one day or whatever. I have him going to the New York Mets, replacing Pete Alonso. I have him going for 7 years, $140 million, right around $20 million AAV. I could even see that potentially getting bumped up to the 150-ish range in bidding. I think there's going to be plenty of teams that are in the market here. He's 25 years old. He hit 56 homers in Japan during their dead ball era to have the record for most homers there. I think there's going to be many teams that believe, hey, we could fix his contact rates. We can fix the swing and miss rates. He has very similar numbers to a young Ohtani and NPB, especially against the high number of high velocity fastballs over there. I think some team's going to believe they could do that. So I think that's the Mets, 7 years, 140.
The interesting thing about Murakami is I feel like he's Miguel Sano. He's got this like a ridiculously low zone contact rate, like 60% or something like that.
He's 72.
It's low, right? And he's going to have to navigate Major League Command versus MPB Command. Offensive players haven't been quite as consistent coming over. Obviously, you've got some success stories. You've also got some guys who come over and struggled. I think there's a high likelihood that he's at least playable, but it's going to take a couple of years. So I think you need a team that's going to need, have some space in their lineup. They need to have already a strong lineup. I like the Mets. This is as shot in the dark as it could possibly get because I do not know who's going to take on this risk, but who's just crazy enough to take his extra savings from this last year and spend it on a guy who's 25. Be AJ Preller. So I'm sending him over to San Diego, play first base, right? Just get a little crazy, but then he'll hit in like 6th or 7th in that lineup. It won't matter, right? So that's what I'm rolling with. I'll roll for 7 for 130. I have no idea what this contract is going to look like. A lot of these other ones, it's more of an educated guess. I've seen some other estimates that make me feel like I'm in the right spot. I don't know what this is going to look like. He could have a 4-year deal. He could have a 10-year deal. I don't know. So we'll see.
Yeah, I've actually got him go to the Mariners, 8 for 150. The Mariners need 2 corner infielders. They need a first baseman and a third baseman. I think Murakami has a chance to play third base. Probably not, but there's a chance he at least can fake it a little bit. And they also don't really have a full-time DH there because, you've got Cal Raleigh DHs on his catcher off days, but that might be a good opportunity to kind of get Murakami's feet wet where maybe he can DH sometimes, and Kyle Raleigh gets an off day. He doesn't. I've got a spoiler alert. I've got another first baseman signing here with the Mariners too later on. But I just think the Mariners need to just keep stacking some bats in that lineup that have the power potential and go from there. So I think, I've got Murakami going there. I definitely wanted to pick a West Coast team, and I didn't think that the Dodgers would go for this. He's totally blocked there. I didn't think the Padres would go for this because I don't think they're going to spend money. The Giants, I didn't really think would go for this, especially since they have the same player in Devers Devers is better, but same first, third DH type guy. And they've also got a third baseman in Chapman there. And then so that left the Mariners, and the Mariners have some open spots in that corner infield. So I thought that might be the option that gets picked there. But I honestly have no idea what's going to happen with this free agency. It's going to be a very, very weird one, and we'll see what happens with them.
So next we're going to transition to talking about Michael King. And David was talking earlier, he has no idea about certain ones. This is I have no idea, to be honest. I was so convinced that Michael King was going to just take the qualifying offer. I feel like he loves it in San Diego. I feel like he dealt with that injury-riddled season. He wanted to come back to San Diego. They're losing Dylan Cease. Yu Darvish is out for the full year. Musgrove coming off Tommy John. You aren't sure. I just felt like King would stay there on the qualifying offer. The more I think about it, the more I think free agency is just going to give him more money than the qualifying offer will. I still think he stays with the Padres. I just think it's on a 2-year deal with an option after year one for $25 million a year. So 2 years, $50 million with an option, an opt out there. I just don't know if he hasn't had the long track record of starting. Mm-hmm. He dealt with a bunch of injuries this year. I know he's really, really good. I just don't know if some team's going to, with the qualifying offer attached, is going to be willing to give him a very long-term deal with all of those things combined there. I think San Diego really does like him. I think it makes sense. They still need some starting pitching. So I'm going to say 2 years, say $55 million. I'll update my thing from the qualifying offer.
I was going to say, Damien didn't have his sheet doing it. We have a spreadsheet, right? On this one in particular, I've typed in 5 different teams, finally settled on one. But I had typed Padres, I had typed Rangers, I had typed Cubs, I had typed Yankees, and I'm settled on the Mets. I think his market is going to be the most vast of any player in this class. He's young, starting pitcher, formerly really, really highly valued, got traded in the Soto trade. King feels like the guy that gets a payday that's absurdly high for what he has been recently. So I give him 5 for $140 by the Mets. I might even be undershooting what he ends up getting in this free agency. I think King gets paid absurdly high for what we're considering his market to be right now. There aren't a ton of impact starting pitchers. King can be that. Somebody might believe firmly that King is their future ace, and him going back to New York makes a lot of sense. That's why I had both of the New York teams in there. And I'm settling on the Mets as making him a very highly paid player because they always have cash to throw around.
Yeah, I've actually got this as a Brave. I think when they announced he was opting out, I said in a little group message with y'all, I said, that's a Brave. I think the profile just fits the type of pitcher he is. Kind of the history of him the last few years. The Braves have been pretty aggressive in bringing in guys who are relievers, transition to starters. The stuff profile fits well. I feel like I feel like it's just a match, kind of the range of the market. I think the Braves are going to be looking at with starting pitchers is kind of where Michael King will be. I think it fits pretty well. I got him 4 for $90. I think he could get a little bit more than that, but as y'all have mentioned, this is going to be a kind of a tough one to judge because of, the injuries he's had the last couple of years, and just, it's kind of hard to tell with him, but I've got Michael King going to the Braves 4 for $90.
It's not a bad shot. They could spend some money this year for sure. So let's go to Framber Valdez, who is another kind of weird one because he's been so consistent for so long. Then you had that clubhouse snafu this year where he intentionally crossed up his own catcher. Seems like that might hurt his market a little bit. But you know who doesn't really care about that type of stuff? That's Artie Moreno. He
Yeah.
doesn't care, right? What do the Angels need? They need really good starting pitching. I think this makes perfect sense there. I have him going to the Angels 6 years, $175 million, getting close to that $30 million AAV number. Perry is going to be kind of in his last hurrah here, I believe. They even gave new manager Kurt Suzuki only a 1-year deal. It feels like this is a, hey, we have to do something this year type thing. I dealt with trying to figure out a couple other pitchers there, but I just think that Artie Moreno doesn't care about the clubhouse stuff, right? He's just going to pay people. What better way? He also going to take someone from the Astros right away. So I just think that it's just too much of a good fit for the people that don't care about bad stuff going on.
Yeah, I think that is maybe the biggest key to my pick, because I have him going to the Red Sox, pairing up with Garrett Crochet. Feel like the Red Sox, Craig Breslow, are going to make a move for a starting pitcher. Now, that could be a trade, but there's holes in the Red Sox rotation. I think that's one of the biggest spending teams that's going to be hunting starting pitching. I've already given a starting pitcher to the Mets, right? And that's another one of those big teams. So Framber, if Breslow, and I think, ultimately like the Cubs, I think even going back to the Astros, a lot of those things are potentially there, but a lot of those teams are going to have to clear this clubhouse concern for Framber Valdez. That's why I have him getting less, I think, than I have him getting right at the same number that Michael King gets overall. Which kind of surprised. I have him getting 6 for like 150. I dropped this number down like $60 million from my first iteration, because I was like, I think he's going to get a pay cut. He's going to have to take a little bit less money in order to prove his that it's not like a typical thing that I'm crossing up my catcher. I think that might be a problem in some of these clubhouses that are looking to sign him, and he might have to take kind of a prove it deal almost with regards to the AAV.
Yeah, I know that Framber Valdez at times has been kind of thought of as a little bit of a hothead at times. He can let his emotions get to him a little bit, but it's kind of hard to tell if this thing with the catcher, if that's an isolated incident or if that's something that's happens pretty often with him. So I'm not really gonna worry too much about that, but I will say that this is a 31-year-old pitcher who has been very consistent, and I think he fits the Giants pretty well. The Giants have a pretty good amount of ground ball types over the last couple of years. You think about Logan Webb kind of being their ace. This guy, he's not quite as good as Logan Webb, but he's a little bit of a lefty Logan Webb. He's got a good sinker, good curveball. He keeps the ball on the ground. He gets a little more swing and miss than I think, a lot of your typical, when you think of just a sinker ball pitcher would get. He's been so consistent for the last 4 or 5 years that I think Framber Valdez gets a pretty good payday. I've got him 5 for 140, and I've got the Giants here.
I agree completely, but with a different pitcher. So
we'll talk about it when we get there.
Yep.
Let's transition over to talking about Dylan Cease now. And David had one San Diego Padre pitcher going to the Mets. I have a different San Diego Padre pitcher going to the Mets. Dylan Cease, I have him going there 5 years, $162 million. He has been a model of consistency of taking the ball every 5th day, basically. Strikes out a ton of people. He walks a decent amount too, but the Mets need starting pitching. They need good starting pitching that can strike people out. I think that's just Dylan Cease to a T. You don't have to deal with injuries with him, really. He's going to take the ball. He's going to give you close to 200 innings. He's going to strike people out. It's basically everything they need there. I think they're going to make a play for some other, pitching too later on, maybe not in here, but in a trade or something. I just think you got to get at least one guy off the free agency market, and that's where I think Dylan Cease just fits perfectly with what they want.
Yeah, I had kind of thought about the Mets. I had waffled between the Mets and the Cubs for Dylan Cease. I'm rolling with the Cubs. I think it's finally time for Jed Hoyer to spend some money in the rotation. Dylan Cease is a guy they traded for Jose Quintana back in the day, which disaster trade. But Dylan Cease in particular has been a really, really good major league starting pitcher. He's also coming off of a year with like a 5 ERA, right? So how do you value a guy who throws 97 to 100 with former Cy Young pedigree that also is coming off a year with a 5 ERA? It's going to be a really difficult free agency. somebody's going to pay him. I think the Cubs need to be prioritizing that high-end stuff, the high-end velocity, because they have a lot of the finesse guys already in the rotation. We're going to talk about another one later that may or may not come back. Like, this is a really interesting spot where the Cubs have a ton of money off the books. They've got a lot of open stuff, and we just went through a whole list of really good hitters. None of us picked them for the Cubs. I feel like the Cubs are going to be spending somewhere on at least one player. This feels like the player for me, the guy with the most stuff. I got him for 5 for 165, 33 million a year. That's a hefty price. I think that'd be the most they paid for a single year of somebody. It would pass Cody Bellinger. So I have Jed spending a little money on the rotation here.
Yeah, I'm with you on Jed spending money on the rotation, but we'll get to that in a little while for who I think they'll get. But I've actually got him going to the Orioles. I think the Orioles are underrated. Gonna be that team that spends a little bit more than people think of. They had their ownership change last offseason. And sometimes it takes a year or so before the ownership actually starts to spend a little bit, kind of get things up and running, kind of evaluate exactly where everything's at, what the finances are going to be. I do think the Orioles spend a little bit, and I know they were really close to trading for Dylan Cease a couple of years ago. So I've got him go to the Orioles. I've got him 6 for 180. The Orioles need pitching really badly. They have a roster that could compete in the American League East still if they can get some pitching. And I think that they're going to be a little bit more aggressive than we've seen over the past few years in doing that.
I'll believe the Orioles are going to spend when I see it, man.
We'll see.
My thing is, I believe the Orioles will sign a qualifying offer free agent when they sign a qualifying offer free agent.
That too, yeah.
That is not a Mike Elias strong suit for sure. But let's talk about Ranger Suarez now, the left-handed pitcher from the Phillies. I have him going to the Toronto Blue Jays. I have him going 5 years, $145 million. If you look at that rotation, they're most likely losing Max Scherzer, Chris Bassett. You have Jose Barrios still, but you left him off your postseason roster. He's a fine guy to play in the regular season, but it doesn't seem like you trust him in the postseason. I believe Gossman's a free agent after next year. It's either next year or 2 years.
It's after next year.
It would only leave you like Savage and a couple other guys. I think Ranger Suarez also, one thing they've been missing is like a left-handed starting pitcher. I think this is a great fit there. It gives you everything you need. He's also been pretty consistent. He's a playoff performer for you as well. So I believe Ranger Suarez to the Toronto Blue Jays just makes a whole ton of sense.
The Blue Jays are definitely going to sign a left-handed starting pitcher. It's just not going to be Ranger Suarez. Ranger Suarez feels like the perfect description of what Matt gave for Framber Valdez to the Giants, right? The rotation fit is beautiful for them, right? Ranger throws like 90 miles an hour, right? He is not a high overpowering guy, but he has a lot of deception, has a lot of breaking balls, a lot of extra stuff going on. That's kind of the same way Logan Webb gets people out. He has for years in San Francisco. He's just the lefty version of that. I've got Buster Posey going and getting him. Ranger Suarez, spending a ton of money for him. I think he's going to spend for like 6 years, give him for like 185 million. Give him a big deal. But this, we've got a lot of this. You'll note we've got a lot of the same teams floating around for the same types of players. Ultimately, that's kind of what our read on this market, right? So Giants are going to go spend on a starting pitcher. Who's it going to be? I got it being Ranger Suarez. Who you got, Matt?
Yeah, I've actually got the Cubs with this one. I think Ranger Suarez, the Cubs need a lefty in the rotation. They lost Imanaga. Well,
they have about 5.
Well, but I think the Cubs would like to replace Imanaga, and I mean,
I would love for him to not accept this qualifying offer.
I mean, I think they don't. I don't think they trust Imanaga to be a guy that could start for them in postseason play or something. I think they give him the. I don't even know that they'll give him the qualifying offer. I guess they did.
Yeah, they already
did.
He'll
probably accept it, but I don't know. I feel like I feel like they'll bring somebody in the rotation, and I've got Suarez because I couldn't think of anybody else for him since I already gave the Giants their lefty pitcher. Like I know the Cubs are going to spin in their rotation. I don't know how Cubs feel about Justin Steele coming back 100% anytime soon.
Yeah. He might start the season, but he's not going to be trustworthy coming off the elbow.
Exactly. I mean, you've got him as a lefty that you're not trusting. Imanaga, you don't trust.
Yeah.
Ranger Suarez can be like your top lefty in your rotation.
Is he better than Boyd? I mean, he was
I think
last
he's
year.
better than
but
Boyd. I don't know that you can fully trust Boyd to do what he did last year.
we'll
I think Suarez you can trust to be a consistently good starting pitcher.
You'll
Boyd,
note we've just described like 4 left-handed starting pitchers in the Cubs rotation. Adding another one feels a little excessive.
I think the Cubs will do something in their rotation. I just think it's via trade, to be honest.
That's fair.
I think they might run back that Mackenzie Gore talk or something like that again from the offseason. But
I'm more okay with that.
Let's transition over to talking about Eugenio Suarez. And David talked about how he had changed his pick for, was it Michael King, like 5 times?
Mm-hmm.
I think I've changed mine for Eugenio Suarez 5 times. I started off with him going back to the Mariners. Then I was like, no, it's going to be the Angels. Then I was going to be like the Red Sox. But then I remembered I had Pete going to the Red Sox. And then I was just thinking, like, man, who else is another team that just can use another, like, right-handed impact bat? And I started thinking, Philly's been talking about trading Alec Boehm for a while. What do they also need to help split up with Trey Turner? You're going to get Kyle Schwarber, Bryce Harper. Perfect guy to kind of go right in there and take some of that load off of, like, a guy like JT Realmuto or whatever. Eugenio Suarez. I have him going 4 years, $100 million, $25 million AAV. He would also be a nightmare in Citizens Bank Park. Like, hitting there would also be insane with the power he has. So I think it's a great fit. And I think we finally see that Alec Boehm trade somewhere for, like, maybe a starting pitcher or something.
It makes sense. I think you described a lot of scenarios that make sense. Suarez is going to have a really big market. That might drive the price up more than I'm thinking. I did go with one of your teams that you mentioned, though. I went with the Angels. Think Artie Moreno is going to see 49 home runs and jump all over it, kind of ignoring that a lot of those 49 home runs came in the early part of the season, and down the stretch he was back to the old strikeout a lot, league average, powers carrying the profile type of hitter for Eugenio Suarez. But the Angels need a third baseman. It's a good fit. I think there's a lot of teams that could really be realistically in on a power bat like Suarez. He's going to get a contract. I haven't met 3 for 56. It may be more than that, I think, but I don't know that I expect him to get 100 million. That seems like a lot for a guy who's already 34. But this is kind of, I kind of mirrored the Christian Walker deal a little bit. It might be a little more than 56 overall, but yeah.
Yeah, I got him going to the back to the Reds. The Reds typically, when they're in a competitive window, will spend in this middle of the free agent market for like one guy a year. You saw it a couple of years ago when they spent on Jamer Candelario. We saw it several years ago when they spent on like Mike Moustakas. I think that this is the kind of the type of guy that they would spend on. Yeah, Castellanos as well. I think this is the type of guy that they'll spend something in the middle of the market on. And 3 years, $60 million. He's been in Cincinnati before. He's a great fit for that ballpark. They just need more offense, and I think he would be able to help bring that. I'm with you, David. The second half was kind of back to what we expected from Eugenio Suarez this year. He's a good player. He's not as good as he was in the first half. That feels like just a really hot stretch that he had. He is the type of player that can get hot, but I don't think he's going to get some huge deal or anything. I got him 3 for 60. I think $20 million a year. That's a really good payday for him, kind of compared to what we expected for him coming into the season. He really increased his value this year because I don't think I would have expected him to get a 3-year deal coming into the season on his next contract. But definitely 360 and the Reds is what I got here.
All right. Let's go talk about another Japanese player, this time Tatsuya Iami. If you don't know him, he is a starting pitcher. Profiles a lot like Yoshinobu Yamamoto. He's a little bit older, I believe. I think he's 27. The same size, not as good splitter, but has some other secondary stuff as well. But he could still hit 99, 100 as well. I think this is a great opportunity. You guys both had the Giants getting a pitcher at some point. I think Iami is also another guy. They've wanted to try and jump into that Japanese market as well before. They need a high-impact pitcher. I think Iami is kind of a guy they could go for there and give themselves a stamp. I have it going 8 years, $150 million. Be 18.75 AAV-wise. I think it's in line with what you should probably expect. I don't know if he's going to get the big-time $25 million AAV type deal. He could, but I think it also depends on when he gets posted, where the other starting pitching market looks like. I could see him might wanting to get posted a little bit earlier, knowing that some of those guys might linger as well. So I think Amai to the Giants. We all have the Giants getting a pitcher, just in a little different way. I think Amai makes a great fit there. West Coast, so it's also another benefit to it. I can see the Yankees. I flipped back and forth between the Yankees and the Giants here, so I'm gonna pick Giants though.
Yeah, Imai's got he's coming over with a massive whiff rate. He was crushing it in Japan in terms of strikeout rate, but it was all in the secondaries, right? The fastball, you mentioned how he's got a good velocity. Fastball wasn't the one getting the whiffs. So it's a little bit of an interesting profile where I think we talked about how Murakami has a lot of those kind of red flags, but also like that star upside. I think Imai is kind of in that same boat where you could get yourself a mini Yamamoto, or you could get like a 4-5 in your rotation, and the contract should reflect that. The team I have that you guys have noted that's going to spend on a free agent starting pitcher is the Toronto Blue Jays. I will note that I really would be fine if the Cubs did this one. I will note that, but for the time being, I'll go with the Blue Jays 7 for $175. I think $25 million is kind of the minimum that we would expect here for it seems like it's just going to be about how many years he gets. So
yeah. I don't know why we're moving back and forth.
I don't know either.
So much here, but
I hit it by accident. I'm trying to get us back to what we were.
Okay, there we go. So I've got this guy is a Japanese pitcher. So until the Dodgers don't sign the Japanese pitcher, I'm picking the Dodgers to sign the Japanese pitcher. I don't care if it makes no sense.
It makes no sense.
It makes no. I don't care. I don't care that it makes no sense. It's going to be the Dodgers until it isn't. 6 for $150. And honestly, the Dodgers are losing Kershaw. They are. I think Sasaki's a better fit in the bullpen. Honestly.
They're going to continue him as a starter.
The Dodgers always sign a 6th starting pitcher. So,
they have about 10 stockpiles right now.
Well, they do, but
they're getting River Ryan and Gavin Stone back from injury this year. Two are very good. So
the Dodgers aren't the Dodgers are not in the business of trusting young pitchers that have been injured. They're in the business of spending money. So
they trust their guys. Stone had a really good year.
It's not absurd, but I don't expect it.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I'm like I say, until the Dodgers don't sign the Japanese pitcher, then I am picking the Dodgers to sign the Japanese pitcher. So it doesn't matter.
Well, if we're in the realm of talking about absurd, I've got told that this one is absurd in my guess. So let's start with Trent Grisham here, because I have a very weird, sneaky suspicion that Trent Grisham's going to get a lot more money than people are expecting this year, coming off the year he just had. I know the defensive numbers weren't as great as you would expect from Trent Grisham, but I think you could just say that was maybe just a fluky year from it. He's been a high-profile defender before. There's a team that needs an outfield bat that can hit homers and play really good defense. That's the Kansas City Royals. I also have them giving him 5 years, $100 million. It sounds weird that Trent Grisham could get $100 million, but I just have some sneaky suspicion that that's a guy that someone might just pay up for off of that career year. Like, don't ask me why. I have a feeling about it. So I can't wait to look back and be like, what the hell were you thinking? He got like $15 million a year for 2 years or something.
Yeah.
I have this feeling.
I think the AAV is there. I just think that the track record is so short that he won't get a longer term deal because of those numbers. Also, you have to consider that he's probably going to move over to the corner outfield spot. I don't think he's going to be. You mentioned the good defense. I think that's probably done. Probably in center field for Trent Grisham. At the very best, he'll just be able to play out there a few games. But the team, I think, I mentioned him earlier, that is going to step in here and sign an outfielder would be the Tampa Bay Rays. It makes. I really do think they could be a dark horse for Kyle Tucker, but obviously, if they're interested in Tucker, I think they're going to be a player on the outfield front. Worth noting, there's a lot of teams in need of outfield help. This should be a fairly robust market. So, we may look in and, in that video of the free agency signing and say, Damian undershot the number that Trent Grisham ended up getting. So, Wouldn't surprise me. I've got him going to the Rays for 3 for 75. I think, that's kind of my one expectation, that they'll sign somebody. But they could also just trade one of the starting pitchers for a prospect or something. That's kind of how the Rays typically operate. But new management over there, so we'll see.
Yeah, I got down to this point on the sheet and I realized I've not given the Mets anybody. And the Mets always sign way more players than nobody. So I've got Trent Grisham to the Mets. I think it makes sense. They've currently got Tyrone Taylor slotted into center field. I think Trent Grisham would be an upgrade there. Obviously Trent Grisham was a Brewer under David Stearns. I think that's a kind of a connection there too. I got him 3 for 55. I don't think he's going to get a huge deal. The track record is just not long enough. He's had this one really good year. He had a good year in like 2020 or something too, but he had some rough years in between there. And I think Trent Grisham's probably a better player than he was during those rough years. I've always been kind of a pro Trent Grisham person, but I think that will limit his market. But I've got him going to the Mets. And then kind of platooning maybe with Tyrone Taylor in center field. I think that would be a good fit there.
Well, it's an easy transition to the next one for me with Edwin Diaz, because I don't think the Mets let Edwin Diaz walk out the door. I don't think you can at this moment. He's done great for you for years. I think you're going to sign him 4 years, $100 million. I think they bump up the AAV there. They reset the closing pitcher market again. Like, he got the record deal at the first time around. I think you give him the record deal again to kind of reset that for another relief pitcher. $25 million here. Edwin Diaz is still so good. Like, he's at the top of his game still. I don't know how you let him walk out of New York with the trumpets and everything. It seems like he just means so much to that team as well. So I just have him going back to the Mets.
I considered it. I think I had a different team on here before. I was thinking about some other options. I like what Matt's done, actually, so I'll just defer to him. I have them getting him for $25 million a year. I just said it's only going to be 3 years, $75 million. The AAV bumps up to the highest paid reliever ever, but he doesn't get that total number up over. I think it's Josh Hader who's got the most right now in terms of overall numbers. It might actually just be Edwin Diaz's last deal that he opted out of. That was the highest paid reliever deal ever. So, I think this one's fairly cut and dry. I think just Diaz just goes back to the Mets. I want to send him somewhere else. I don't know who's going to spend on relievers like that, though.
Yep. Well, I'll tell you who's going to spend money and I think could spend on relievers based on kind of the pattern that they've had in the past is I think the Braves might do this. Jeremy Hefner taking him from the Mets. Jeremy Hefner just came over. He was Edwin Diaz's pitching coach last year with the Mets. He's with the Braves now. And I think just the Braves are going to spend on the bullpen. They always have. Alex Anthopoulos signed Will Smith to a big contract. He traded for Raisel Iglesias, who was on a big 4-year contract. The Braves bullpen right now on paper looks like an absolute mess for next year. They've got to fortify that. And what better way to do it than just bring in like the best closer on the market. And then you can kind of pick and piece things together beyond that. They have a lot of work to do with the bullpen. And I think that I don't know. I know the Braves are going to spend a lot of money this offseason. There's a lot of money coming off the books and payroll is supposed to go up some. So this is a place that I could see them really want to fortify that back into their bullpen. We'll see. That's a low confidence prediction, but I've just had a feeling that they were going to sign somebody like that, surprise everybody.
I have them doing something else in the bullpen later, but let's transition to talking about Josh Naylor now, because I think you guys have both had the Mariners signing someone already to replace the first base void. I just think it's Josh Naylor going back. I think that his impact there, it seemed like he really loved being in Seattle. That ballpark fits him hitting very well as well. So I just have Naylor going back on a 4-year, $80 million deal, $20 million per year. I think you don't rock the boat while you have something there, and then you focus on maybe your other avenues of maybe trade or other free agents for your third base, outfield, whatever else you want to do there. But you get the guy who you know is locked in and has played well there before, in Josh Naylor.
Yeah, I might be overcooking this one a little bit, but I have the Red Sox going for Naylor over Alonso at a slight cost cut. Naylor's the younger player. He's a different profile, right? A lefty, but with a lot of that contact, and was able to show some of that power as well last season. He's really more of a complete hitter than Alonso, and he stole 30 bases somehow. I don't know. I don't expect that to continue, but Josh Naylor is the kind of guy that I think might trigger some of those analytically inclined front offices to splurge there versus one of the pure power guys we've already talked about, to where maybe they can get a little more out of the power end of a guy who's already so non-strikeout prone, such a great contact hitter. So I'm going Red Sox for Naylor in lieu of like an Alonso or one of those guys. 5 for 125. Take a little bit of a pay cut from some of those projected deals for Pete Alonso, and then you get the added bonus, so you didn't have to negotiate with Boris to get Naylor. So
yeah, I've got him go back to the Mariners. Like I said earlier, I talked about it a little bit with the Murakami signing. I feel like they need two or three corner infield / DH types. And, Naylor was already there. I think it seemed like he liked his time in Seattle, second half of the year, played really well for them. I think that they are going to try to bring him back. I've got him 5 years, $100 million. So pretty good deal for him. I think that's about what I would consider market value for a first baseman who doesn't have a ton of power, pretty good contact, not good defensively. Probably a 2 to 3 win player a year. That's probably kind of the going rate is probably $20 million a year.
So let's talk about Luis Arraez now, who is one of the more polarizing free agents there, because I don't think anyone truly knows how to value Luis Arraez. He's a guy who's going to get you a ton of hits. He's going to hit for average, not much power, but doesn't strike out, doesn't walk, just really only hits singles, right? A lot. I was thinking about this, and I tried thinking about many different teams, and I just came back to, I feel like the team that only just really values him is the Padres. I feel like it's a perfect fit there with their valuation and everything else. It just seems like it's everything they would value. They're the only team I think would look at him as that way. So I had them going 3 years, $40 million, which is a little bit above 13 million AAV. I don't know he's going to get a bunch more than that. Originally I was looking at like $15 million for 3 years, but I don't know who's going to value it that way. This is going to be one of the more fascinating free agency, sagas to play out here.
Yeah, it's tough because if Arraez could play anywhere else on the infield besides probably first base, he would be such a more valued player. But because he's such a brutal defender at second base and probably isn't a third baseman at all, like he becomes this odd spot where who are you booting out of DH for a Luis Arraez, or who are you booting out of first base for Luis Arraez? So I don't think any of the good teams are going to sign a guy like this. Right. And you mentioned the Padres. I don't think the Padres bring him back because, again, I gave the Padres Murakami. So for me, I went with the deal that makes perfect sense in the place that he would gain the most value. And that is Coors Field, because contrary to popular belief, you want the contact hitter at Coors Field. You don't want the power hitter. The contact hitter at Coors Field is the biggest outfield in baseball. Luis Arraez would hit 350 in Coors Field. Let him play there 81 games a year and hit 350. That's what I think. I've got him 3 years, 36 million, something, 12 million a year. It's interesting, but this is the deal that should happen. If I was running the Rockies, it's my first phone call is Luis Arraez agent. We're paying him whatever he wants.
Well, good thing you got Paul DePodesta doing that now.
And that makes it even more likely, I think.
Yeah. Jonah Hill will be on that phone.
Yeah.
I have got him going to. I had the Rockies as well, David, but I just changed it. I just changed my mind. I've got him going back to Miami.
That's fine.
I think the Marlins might sign a couple of these lower end free agents. They had a pretty good year last year. Maybe think in the vein of the Royals a couple years ago when they signed Waka and Lugo. Small market team, has no money on the books at all. Had a pretty good year. Maybe you sign a guy or two that has some upside that you like, and they can kind of, you can surprise. I think the Marlins might be one of those teams. We're going to talk about trades a tiny bit later. There's a lot of Marlins trade guys on there that I kind of said we're going to stay. I feel like the Marlins are going to make just a couple of little moves to kind of see what happens. So I've got him going back to the Marlins. The fans liked him there. He was, that was a good fit. And I think he could, they got a lot of open spots for him to play too. So
Let's go talk about another relief pitcher in Robert Suarez this time. I think it's basically a foregone conclusion that he's leaving the San Diego Padres. Don't know if that means Mason Miller becomes the closer. It seems like they might want to transition that to a starting pitcher. But for Robert Suarez, this is another one where I was trying to figure out where to go. And I was actually on with David as I was doing this. And I think I really talked myself into the Chicago Cubs here. They need a closer. They need someone who with high velocity as well. You put him with Palencia in the back end of that bullpen. I'm not sure if Brad Keller comes back or not. I think I had them re-signing Keller. No, I had Keller going somewhere else. That's why I flipped it. I think it makes sense there. 2 years, $25 million, a little $12.5 million per year. I think it makes a lot of sense there. Gives them a guy who's had closing experience before and been one of the better closers in baseball for a few years. So I'm Cubs.
I don't anticipate that, but I wouldn't hate it. I wouldn't anticipate it. I don't think the Cubs are spending more than $9 million a year on a reliever. However, I will say that I think Robert Suarez has the attitude of a future Angels reliever. We saw Artie Moreno go in there and try to sign Robert Stevenson with a big fastball, and it has not worked out. Robert has, I think, thrown like 2 innings for them. It's been horrible for poor Bob Steve, but I think the Angels keep firing, keep gunslinging, go and spend some money on Robert Suarez, get the guy with 80% fastball. It feels like the type of usage that the Angels would be down with, and they need help in the bullpen. Kenley Jansen's a free agent as well. So I'm going Angels. 2 years, like $26 million. I think, that 12 to 13 AAV seems like the right amount for a guy who declined, I think, 8 for next year. So yeah, you're expecting like a 50% bump on that number. So that's where I'm going.
What if I told you there was a team that spent an absolute ton of money, yet their bullpen was an atrocity? And they're going to spend more money to fix it. And that's going to be the Dodgers. 3 years, 45. I think that's enough said. They like taking pictures from the Padres too. Blake Snell, they took from the Padres, kind of. Secondhand, but they took it from the Padres. We're going to call it that. They took Tanner Scott from the Padres. Like, we're gonna take another pitcher from the Padres. Robert Suarez.
Worth noting, but Dodgers reliever I have them signing is Ryan Helsley, the guy from the Cardinals. We're not going to cover him, but I agree that the Dodgers will be signing a big name reliever.
And I have them sign a big name reliever as well. We'll talk about it here in a little bit. But let's stay in the NL West right now and talk about Zac Gallen. This is another guy who I really bounced back and forth, like same with Michael King with the qualifying offer, not what's he going to do? Because he really struggled this year. And then like the last 5 to 6 starts kind of turned it on and looked like the Zac Gallen we kind of would expect him to be. I think he just goes back to Arizona. I think it's a 4-year, $90 million deal. 22.5 per year. I think it makes sense. They're going to get Corbin Burns back at some point this year. Gallen fitting in there. Might even go re-sign a guy like Merrill Kelly. I just think it makes sense. They need to keep some of their starting pitching there with some of the young guys not panning out the way they want it to be. So I did not have a good feel on Gallen's market at all.
Yeah, a guy coming off another guy coming off like a 5-year season. He was really horrible for a good chunk of the year. I thought to myself, well, only a crazy person would want to sign Zac Gallen to a big deal. And the only 2 crazy people that I can immediately think of were the AJ Preller and then Artie Moreno. Those are the 2 that I've kept coming back to as they're going to do something wacky. And who are the wackiest players on this market? Zac Gallen. So I'm going with Gallen to the Angels. I think the Angels sign a starting pitcher. Again, I don't know who it's going to be, but I feel like they're going to have to overpay to get Gallen's services there. And Gallen, it feels like Gallen will decline the qualifying offer, but who knows? Again, he had a 5.5 ERA last year. It's a tough spot to be in. I got the Angels going 4 for 120, 30 million AAV. Paying him like the Zac Gallen of old, because we talked about the track record with Trent Grisham. The track record with Zac Gallen's fantastic, with the exception of last year. So. Send him to the Angels, but honestly, this is maybe my lowest confidence pick of any of them, other than maybe the Japanese guys. I just feel like I got no read on this one at all.
Yeah, I've got him going back to Arizona. I think he signs one of those 2-year deals with an opt-out after the first year type things, kind of a prove-it deal. I think he probably could get a decent contract on the free agent market, something like the 4 for 190, but I think he would like to keep his options open for next year and with that opt-out, because if Zac Gallen pitches like he did at the end of this year, and honestly, the metrics on him were not bad this year either. If he pitches like that, next year and has a better luck, better metrics, or better results compared to his metrics, I think that he will get a big contract next offseason. So, this is a pretty deep pitching class in free agency too.
Yeah.
So I could see him going back to Arizona on that 2-year deal with maybe the opt out of the first year, but basically just give him an option year after the qualifying offer. So I got 2 years, $50 million, go back to Arizona.
Yeah. If he pitches well, he could be the top free agent starting pitcher next year. So I think we can all good.
He will not be unless Streak Skubal does not extend.
Well,
so
second
best.
One of the top. I mean, he would be like
second best. Yeah, still good.
He'd be up there.
Detroit Tigers would just extend Skubal already. What are we doing? All right.
What are we doing?
I think we can all speed run this one real quick. JT Realmuto, Phillies.
Yeah,
okay.
Phillies.
Back to the Phillies.
I have 2 at 30, $15 million a year, just to stay there. I think it's pretty close to what we're all at, AAV wise.
Yeah.
So, okay, Kazuma Okamoto or Okamoto. I don't know how to say it exactly. But he is the other Japanese infielder that is going to get posted this year. He is less power, higher floor than a guy like Munetaka Murakami. He's hit like 30-ish homers over there, but with like a 280 average. There's been some rumblings that maybe third base isn't his long-term home either, that it could be first base as well. But when we were looking at things, I thought, man, the Angels they need another right-handed bat, right? I think you had them going to Eugenio Suarez. I think Okamoto is a guy who makes a ton of sense for them. Apparently, he was an Angels fan because of Shohei as well, so maybe he wants to go and play for the Angels at one point. It's going to be interesting to see how the Japanese fans or players coming over deal with the Angels after how that whole thing ended. I just think they're going to sign some bat. I think it's a cheaper option for them while they're going out for pitching, that they could still get someone to maybe have a little bit higher floor for them. Play some third base, maybe some first base. I think it makes a ton of sense.
Okamoto is super interesting in terms of these guys. Obviously, Murakami's got the ceiling, but Okamoto's got the floor. He seems like a guy that's going to be able to come over and hit major league pitching at a steady clip. He won't hit a ton of power, but he's going to have a good approach. He's a guy who doesn't strike out, walks a ton. Like, he's kind of a darling for the analytically inclined GM looking for a safe play. And who better than I described there than Jed Hoyer. So I'm going to say that the Cubs make their kind of offensive addition out of Japan with Okamoto. I think he fits nicely into hedging, that you don't have to have Matt Shaw be the full-time starting third baseman, but you can also play Matt Shaw at third base regularly and move him over to first, DH Michael Busch some. You can work him into the outfield spots. He's got a lot of that flexibility where he can play outfield, third base, first base, DH. He works well on the roster. I have no feel on what this contract is going to look like. I've seen it as little as what Damian had with like 40 million. I've seen it up and around 90 million. Somewhere in there, I'm going with like 4 for 78 for the Cubs. I think as he's 30 years old, he's a little bit older, but I think maybe that gives him a better chance to succeed right away. And I think that's what the Cubs are kind of looking for.
Yeah, I have no idea where this guy's going to go. I put the Rangers. I think the Rangers could use some corner infield depth. Josh Young has been injured a lot. Jake Berger's their first baseman. He was really bad last year. I don't think you can really trust him fully. So I think adding another guy here would make sense for them. I've got him going for 3 years, $55 million. So it's not a really big contract. I don't know if the Rangers are going to spend money at all, but I feel like if the Rangers were to spend a little bit, this would be a good fit for them. And they're close to contention still. They were just barely missed the playoffs this year. They were in it down the stretch. I think adding a guy who would likely be a little bit more of a consistent type of player than some of these other options, even though his upside might be a little bit limited. I think that would be a good option for them. They need a little bit more depth in that lineup. So we'll see if they end up spending anything at all. But I could see them, if they do spend, going for this guy.
I would feel so bad for Skip Schumacher if he went to the Rangers and then they just don't spend money after doing it for Bruce Bochy and stuff. Like, That would suck, man. Let's move on to talking about Devin Williams now. And this is the closer that I have the Dodgers signing. They were very interested in him last year. They thought they had a deal lined up to get him from the Brewers last offseason before the Yankees swooped in and kind of finished that deal. They thought they had Devin Williams already. I think he's going to go to a place where I think he could still win, but that he can close some, but also kind of do the setup thing he was doing before. I think he wants to go to someone who's also analytical, kind of like how Milwaukee was. The Dodgers are kind of the best of everything there. You don't have to be the set guy, but you can still get saves. You get a 1-year deal to kind of prop yourself back up, go into the reliever market next year. You can have a very good chance to win. They're analytical, everything about it. I have this as a 1-year deal for $12 million. I think it's a solid deal. You could maybe bump that up to the 15-ish range, but I think maybe on a 1-year deal that maybe he wants to reset the market, reset his market for next offseason.
Yeah, I think if the 1-year deal thing is it would be up in that 15. I think he's gonna go for 2 years, 10 a year. If you're going for more years, I think you're cutting some of that AAV. But I'm sending him to the Braves. We talked about who's going to be signing these big name free agents. Matt took at the Braves at Edwin Diaz. I've got the Braves grabbing Devin Williams. It makes a lot of sense that the Braves will be involved heavily in this group of pitchers. Would not shock me if Devin Williams was the guy. That's what I'm going to predict.
Yeah, Devin Williams had a sub-2 ERA 3 years in a row for the Brewers from 2022 through 2024. He did have a little bit of an injury concern in 2024. He had like a back injury. So that's something that maybe will limit his value a little bit. And this past year, he had a 5 ERA almost, but his metrics are right in line with what they've always been. So I think he just had a little bit of a bad luck season. Yankee Stadium wasn't a great fit for him. I don't think he liked playing for the Yankees. It seemed like just from the get-go, like the first game of the year, he walked 3 guys or something, and the Yankees fans hated him ever since.
It wasn't even that. It was like spring training when they made him shave his beard, remember?
Yeah.
Remember that whole controversy?
Yeah, so I just don't think that it was a good fit for him. Yeah. I've got him going to the San Francisco Giants. I think he's going to get a much bigger deal than both of y'all feel like. I've got him 3 for $45, and I think that could end up being a steal because I think Devin Williams has the potential to be the best reliever on this market, close with Edwin Diaz if he's fully healthy and kind of back to his form that he has shown consistently through most of his career. So I think that'll be a great signing for the Giants. He's such a unique pitcher. It's kind of hard to predict his market with the, nobody throws the pitch that he throws, that like screwball change up. Yeah. But I think that would be the Giants need a closer. I think that's an option that they could go for.
Let's rapid fire these last 5 names and kind of just real quick go through it. So first one being Max Scherzer. I think he goes to the San Francisco Giants. New manager Tony Vitello was his pitching coach when he was at Missouri. I think they need another back-end guy. I think it makes a ton of sense. He's one of his best friends still. Giants. Yeah,
he takes the Verlander deal to go right back to the Giants. This is an easy one. Year 15, simple.
Yeah, I'm not sure who's going to want him, but I think the Nationals would love to bring him back on a 1-year deal, just kind of a farewell tour. And if you can trade him at the deadline and he wants to be traded, then, if he pitches well, he can go to a contender. But I think they might go back to the Nationals for 1 more year.
I have a hard time seeing him sign with someone that doesn't think they might not win.
Yeah. I mean, you're probably right, but I don't know what contenders are going to want him, early, but at the beginning of the season. So
maybe. Brandon Woodruff right here. I wrestled with going back to the Brewers, but I have him going to the Phillies on a 2-year, $40 million deal. Basically gives him $20 million for 1 year, gives him the option for the year after. We don't know what Wheeler's going to be like. They need someone at the top of the rotation. Less than the qualifying offer, but I think it makes sense.
Yeah, I think he takes the qualifying offer. I don't even think it's a question. If there's, we're going to talk about one more qualifying offer here. If there's one qualifying offer that definitely gets taken, it's this one. His velo was down last year, recovering from the injury. It's like thoracic outlet still. Like it's a tough injury to come back from. He probably needs 1 more year, and you can make $20 million while you're still proving yourself. I mean, that's a no-brainer.
I actually have him going to the Mets. I I've already got the Mets signing a qualifying offer guy, so I don't think they're quite as worried about the draft pick attached. And I think they give him a second year. It's a David Stearns connection again there. I think they probably will feel like another year removed from his injuries, his surgeries and stuff, that he might be a little bit more healthy. And also, the Mets have shown that they aren't too opposed to signing pitchers that have had some injury issues. Look at last year, they signed Frankie Montas, who had a similar type of profile to what Brandon Woodruff had injury-wise. So I think that there's a chance that they bring him in, and I think David Stearns really trusts him and likes him. So I don't think it'll be a huge deal, but like 2 for 45 or something, they can get out of pretty easy.
Next one, Justin Verlander. I think he's taking a 1-year deal, $15 million. And I think he goes back to the Detroit Tigers. You talked about your swan song with Max Scherzer. I think Verlander's a perfect fit in Detroit. Pair him, who could still be very good. You get your guy back, and he can kind of mentor some of those younger guys. So,
yeah, same thing, except for I think it's Houston and not Detroit. So, there you go.
I got him in Detroit. I think he goes to Detroit for one year. I think Detroit's going to be more willing to spend some money here, and I think Detroit probably needs pitching help a little bit too. They need some depth. They got the top end, but they need depth. So I got him going there.
All right, next one, Shota Imanaga. I have him accepting the qualifying offer from the Cubs. I still don't know why they didn't just pick up the $13 million AAV deal that they could have easily traded. You're shaking your head no. $13 million AAV for a 6th pitcher in Major League Baseball right now is very fair money. You're signing 5 starters for $17-18 million. It was $13 million. The worst case, you could have traded it, but now you're getting it back on 1 year, $22 million. So congratulations, Cubs.
Yeah, I don't know why they offered him the qualifying offer. I have him accepting it. I think this whole thing has been bungled. I would have cut him loose. I'm sick and tired of watching that guy give up bombs.
I got him taking the qualifying offer as well.
Yep. All right, last quick free agent right here. Pete Fairbanks was just his option was not picked up from the Rays. I have him going to the Atlanta Braves, a 2-year, $20 million deal. His option was for 11. He signs for 10. Stays pretty close to Toronto, to Tampa Bay there. I also have them signing Brad Keller. So Brad Keller and Pete Fairbanks is the back end for the Braves there. That's kind of what I was thinking the bullpen wise. But Fairbanks is a guy who you can trust to close. Doesn't have to pitch in too much cold weather in Atlanta. So what you got?
Yeah, Peter Fairbanks is interesting. I think he's the type of guy that, some of these teams that are really hunting a reliever are going to go for to try and put him in the limelight a little more. He's a little under-heralded compared to the other guys we talked about. And that's why we brought him up. I got him going to the Blue Jays. I think the Blue Jays do sign one of these relievers. It might be one of the less heralded guys. And that's why I think the fit is a little bit better there. But really, Braves make sense. Anybody we talked about makes sense. Yankees make sense. Like, we didn't really mention them as a fit for a free agent. I have them getting Raisel Iglesias from the Braves. So, a lot of real interesting potential options for Pete Fairbanks. But, that 2 years, 24 million, something like that is kind of the number I expect.
Yeah, I think the Yankees are a good option for him. The Yankees need a back end of the bullpen guy. They're really familiar with him, having been in the same division. I'll say I wouldn't be shocked if he took a little bit less money on a multi-year deal and went back to the Rays. He's been a good fit for the Rays. And, the Rays always play this nickel and dime game with their options. So I would be shocked if he took like a 2-year, like 16 million or something with the Rays, where they just save a few million a year, but he gets a second year. But I think the Yankees will give him 2 years for like 20, maybe 25. I think he's got a pretty good amount of value. I think the Yankees would love to get somebody like that into the back end of their bullpen.
Yeah, I don't know why the Rays just didn't trade him. First off, he's going to get more money in the market than they're going to be willing to offer him. They refused to trade him at the deadline while they were acquiring other guys. It just made no sense. All right, so real quick, I don't want to go too in depth on trades because who the hell ever knows about that stuff. But we put some names in here. We can quickly go through that. But I want to each preference and have us pick one name that's not on this list yet that we can expect to get traded. So first off, names are Tarek Skubal, Ketel Marte, Joe Ryan, Edwin Cabrera, Sandy Alcantara, Mackenzie Gore, Freddie Peralta, Byron Buxton, Sonny Gray. So I just added Sonny Gray because I think he gets traded. So real quick, just yes or no. If yes, then where do you expect him to go? David, Tarek Skubal.
No.
Matt,
No, he doesn't get traded.
same. No. Ketel Marte, I have yes. I say the Cincinnati Reds for the same reason Matt said earlier. They make these kind of splash deals. You don't have to sign him as a free agent. Great fit. David.
I don't think he gets traded. Don't think they match up on value.
Okay. Matt.
I think he goes to the Tigers. They got to replace Gleyber Torres, and I think he's a good option. They've got a great farm system. So,
all right. Next one's Joe Ryan. I said yes. I think he goes to the Boston Red Sox. That was pretty close to the deadline. I think they finished that deal this time. David.
No, because we talked about I think the Twins are gonna not to completely tear it all the way down.
Matt.
I'm going to say yes, and I think the Orioles get another starting pitcher in Joe Ryan. They got the ammunition to trade for him, and I think they're going to get him.
Okay. Edward Cabrera. I have no. I think he stays with the Marlins. David.
No, stays.
He's staying.
Okay. Sandy Alcantara. I said yes. I said Boston Red Sox as well. I think they don't go out and sign a big-time starting pitcher. They trade for a couple.
Trading for 2 starting pitchers is tough. But I'll have Sandy Alcantara going to the Mets. I do think he gets moved this offseason. Pick the Mets kind of at random. I really just want to say yes, Sandy gets moved is my general belief.
Yeah, I'm going to say that Sandy does not get moved. I think the Marlins would have moved him last year or year before if they were going to move him. And coming off of a season where they were a little bit better, I think that they probably keep him at least into the beginning of the season and trade him at the deadline if they aren't in it.
Also, we are grading this, so me saying the Red Sox for 2, they might get one of them, but I expect they make a trade for a starting.
Right. Sure.
Mackenzie Gore, I said earlier, I think the Cubs. I think that's where he gets moved at the deadline. Same thing. Kind of deal with it there. I think they might go back for it this year. David?
I think they hang on to him. The value is too astronomical at the deadline. I don't see it coming.
Even with the new
now.
management coming in?
That might change things. We'll see. I'm not gonna believe they'll suddenly change the internal valuation on Mackenzie Gore overnight.
Yeah, I'm going to say that he does not get traded. He's a really good young pitcher that's got control, and I don't know that the Nationals are going to be moving that at this point.
Okay. Freddie Peralta, I said yes, he's going to get traded. We talked about David Stern's connections. I think the Mets trade for Freddie Peralta. David?
Yes, but that's the Red Sox. That's the pitcher the Red Sox get. It's not those other guys.
Yeah, I'm saying that's a Red Sox pitcher.
Okay. Byron Buxton, I say no. I think he stays with the Twins.
No, same reason. But if I had said yes on Joe Ryan, I would say yes on Byron Buxton. How about that?
Yeah, I'm going to say no on him getting traded. If he does get traded, I think it's to Atlanta. But I'm going to say no if he's not going to get traded.
Okay. Sonny Gray's the last one we have on here. I say yes, and I'm saying the Baltimore Orioles go get Sonny Gray.
It's a decent fit. I think Sonny Gray's a fantastic pitcher, and I hate that he's on the Cardinals, and I hope that this trade comes through. I'm going to the Braves.
I think that the Mets have not gotten enough players here, and that they're probably going to make a move for somebody, and Sonny Gray would kind of fit. I think he would, go ahead. I don't know if he wants to go back to New York is the only thing, but, it's a trade. So I could see the Mets trying to get him, and maybe he can stick it to the Yankees or something. But if I didn't have the Braves signing a couple starters there, I would have said the Braves for him. But I don't know that if the Braves sign those guys, I don't know if they're going to trade for Sonny Gray.
Sure. All right. So now we're all done with this. Now I want a completely ridiculous, outlandish trade that probably will not happen, but give it to me. Because I got one that I want, but I want to save it till the end. Because it's going to kind of make no sense. But
I need a destination for him, though. I think Corey Seager gets traded.
That's who I was going to say.
That was an interesting one.
Hey,
my crazy one. Well, I was going to say my crazy one is Corey Seager to the Braves.
All right, get out of here. Kick this guy out of here.
He's from North Carolina.
Too many Braves.
Well, I mean,
they're going to re-sign Hassan Kim, and you're going to be
that's one that I've heard a few times of, like, if Corey Seager got traded, that would be interesting. And I'm like, because the Braves need a shortstop so bad, a long-term solution there, and it's just, I don't know, man. I don't think they'll do it, but like if Corey Seager got moved, I just don't know where he would get moved to. So
all right, here you go. Bryce Harper got mad that they suggested he might get traded. So then they end up trading Bryce Harper.
Yeah.
The Phillies do. They finally put him with his dog's name in Wrigley Field. That's what happens.
All right.
There you go. I'll take my weird trade since
Okay.
Matt gets his weird one. Damien, what's your weird one?
Well, now
I need
do
a
I have to
destination.
do I have to do my own team now?
I needed a weird destination for Bryce Harper because I don't. Bryce Harper getting traded would be weird.
Now, I'm gonna kind of cop out on the destination.
Okay, well that's what I wanted to do.
No, listen. Once I say it, it'll make sense. Because there's going to be this kind of thing of like where a catcher might go. Who knows? JT might not be back with the Phillies. He might be. Texas might need a catcher, might not. Padres, who knows if they're happy with Freddie Fermin. Adley Rutschman might get traded this offseason. I think it's to one of that carousel of teams. If Realmuto doesn't go back to the Phillies, Adley's a Philly. If he does, maybe the Rangers. If the Rangers stick with Heim, maybe the Padres. I think it's some combination of that 3 or 4 teams that need a catcher. That's where I think Adley goes. I don't know. I don't think Baltimore's stuck to him full time.
Yeah, I guess my consistent question for that would be, why would you sell Adley at this low value? Yeah, like, and it's one of those things where I'm assuming they're worried about the arbitration costs and whatnot, but we're also talking about Baltimore signing players.
Maybe
all episode. I don't know. It feels like a step backwards.
It's why I said it's ridiculous. It's outlandish.
Right. No, all of these last couple have been completely ridiculous. Definitely probably not going to happen. So
they don't make sense, but I want to be able to look back at the end of the offseason and say, man, how were we so stupid? Yeah. So that will wrap up our free agency predictions. Like I said, we are going to be going live usually the night of said things happen, unless it happens at like midnight or something. We're going to come on for some things. Even guys we didn't talk about here, we have more predictions that we want to we'll make some more breaking news episodes. So be sure to subscribe to the Batflip podcast or Batflip Entertainment YouTube channel. Put on those bell notifications so you know when we go live, so you don't miss those. We'll try and get them up as soon as possible. They will be live streams. So be sure to do that. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe on this video, and let us know where you have your favorite free agents going. Thank you guys for tuning in this one, and we'll be back next time.